hero, and people told stories about him all the time. Now, something that I find really cool. Can you all see like a person with a belt and a sword on him? Yeah. So, yeah, he's kind of laying on his back right now. Yeah. The ocean's on his back, right?
Yes.
So, the cool thing about stars is that they're the same all over the world, right? Especially from hemispheres. You all know above the equator to the north there's the northern hemisphere. So in Greece, they had this Orion as a constellation. But many years before that, on another continent, Native Americans had the same group of stars. They didn't call them Orion, but they called them the Great Warrior Chief. Two cultures, different countries, different time periods had the same group of stars with the same basic story behind it. Now that's pretty cool, right? Because they weren't able to text, they weren't able to WhatsApp or Facebook or any of that other stuff. So it was just kind of fascinating to me. I wanted to share one story that I think is a pretty fun one. It's another Greek myth story. It has nothing to do with Orion, but if you look, it's hard to see a little bit, but if you look behind, who's that? Paul. If you look like at Paul's head above the really bright light, there's 4 or 5 stars that kind of make a W in the sky.
Oh, yeah.
It's between the trees, yeah? It's a big W.
Yeah.
That constellation is called Cassiopeia. Now, I'm going to tell you a story of Cassiopeia. You don't have to look at Cassiopeia, you can look at the stars, and I'll tell you a short story of Cassiopeia. Cassiopeia was the queen of Ethiopia during the ancient Greek time. She was one of the most powerful women, and unfortunately she had one small flaw, which is like something not good about her, yeah? She thought she was the most beautiful creature alive, or not even alive. She thought she was the most beautiful and important person, including all the goddesses and all the other people out there, the immortals and the mortals. Do you think that made the goddesses pretty happy? No, because the goddesses, right, they're supposed to be the ones, the gods and goddesses are the ones that are supposed to be more beautiful and more powerful than anyone. So they upset the goddesses, especially the goddesses of the sea, the nymphs and the mermaids. And they complained to their king. Does anyone know who the king of the ocean was?
I forget. No.
Poseidon. So Poseidon is the king of the sea, and they complained to Poseidon, and Poseidon said, "That is, we need to punish this woman. She needs to be made aware of who's in charge, right?" So Poseidon sent out the Kraken to come and destroy Cassiopeia's kingdom. The Kraken, a huge monster, came out of the ocean and started walking towards Ethiopia, towards her kingdom. Now, do you all know what an oracle is? A fortune teller? Yeah. Someone who can predict, right?
Yeah.
So Cassiopeia went to oracles all the time. And the oracle told her that this was going to happen. And the only way to save her entire kingdom was to sacrifice her only daughter, Andromeda. So she said, yeah, no problem. Whatever. So they tied her up and chained her to the rocks. So Poseidon was going to come in and instead of destroying Ethiopia, would destroy just Andromeda. Does that seem like a fair thing? Yeah, I don't know about this, right? But at the same time, something cool happened. This guy named Perseus. Has anyone heard of Perseus? He was another hero. Do you guys know Hercules? No, not one either. Hercules and Poseidon were heroes during ancient Greece, and they solved lots of problems. They won many battles, and they saved lots of people. And Perseus had just come back from solving one of his major problems that he had to do, which was kill somebody, kill the Medusa, which turned people to stone. If you looked at Medusa, you turned to stone instantly. And she was causing a major problem, so Perseus went to take care of it. And he was flying back. Oh yeah, he was flying. It's kind of weird, right? He was flying on a horse. Does anyone know which horse can fly?
Unicorn.
A unicorn? Yeah. This one is a special horse with huge wings called Pegasus. Pegasus. You have heard of Pegasus? Pretty cool horse. So he was flying back across the oceans and passed down and saw Andromeda all chained up and was like, that's not right. What's going on here? So he kind of swooped down to try to save her. And as he did that, this big monster was there, the Kraken. And he looked over and was like, "Oh my God, what is that?" And the Kraken was coming to get them. And he just realized that he had Medusa's head in his bag. So he held up Medusa's head towards the Kraken. What happened to the Kraken?
Turn to stone.
Turned to stone.
What does Medusa's head look like?
Medusa's head is the head of a
Snake.
beautiful woman. But does anyone know what her hair is?
Oh,
Snake.
snake.
Snakes, that's right. And her eyes are deep and hollow. And when she looks at you, you turn to stone.
It's
But that
like-
snake head, yeah.
Like Percy Jackson
Yeah,
movie.
Percy.
Yeah, like Percy,
I
you've
watched-
seen Percy
yeah.
Jackson the movie?
Yeah.
So this is similar, right? So that's based off of Greek mythology. So he turned the Kraken to the stone. He swooped down and grabbed Andromeda, and he flew off into the distance because he was in love with Andromeda. They fell in love instantly. It was pretty cool. And they took off, and that was the end. And Ethiopia was saved. The kingdom was saved. The Kraken was frozen in the ocean. Do you think everybody's happy now? No, the goddesses are upset still, right? Because Cassiopeia hasn't been punished. Who's even angrier?
The ocean.
Yeah, the sea god, right?
Yeah.
Who is Neptune? Neptune. So he complains to the god of gods. Who's the god of gods?
The sea.
The main god.
Does anyone know his name in Greek mythology? Zeus.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Zeus, the thunder god.
Yeah.
So they complain to Zeus, and Zeus says, "Wait, yes, we will definitely punish Cassiopeia, but we will not punish Perseus because he is a hero." So he reached down and grabbed Andromeda by the legs, and she held onto her throne because she didn't want to go anywhere. But this is Zeus, so he just took the throne with her and chucked her into the sky. Cassiopeia, sorry, right? Chucked Cassiopeia into the sky, and she landed right up there, and she's sitting on her throne, which is the W, and she's laying on her throne. Now, does that seem like a punishment? She's in the sky. It's beautiful to look at. The punishment is the fact that Cassiopeia, this is a little bit of science now, is something called a circumpolar constellation, which means it's so close to the polar star that it rotates in the sky and never dips below the horizon. See Orion over there? Remember Orion?
Yeah.
Half the year he's below the horizon and we can't see him. Half the year he's up and we can see him, or half the night as well. Cassiopeia never goes below the horizon ever. So sometimes she's upside down, and that's not very a good position for a queen who thought she was the coolest thing in the world. And half the time that she's right side up. And she never gets any rest. And that was her punishment, to always be up there to remind us that we need to be who we are, but we need to make sure that we recognize everyone else around us as well, and not just yourself. Because there's a lot of people in your community that are just as important as you are. And that is the story of Cassiopeia.